Ivy and Bean break the fossil record. Written by Annie Barrows. Illustrated by Sophie Blackall. Watch your tail, Mary Anning. It was cold outside. The two girls squished into Bean's tiny playhouse. How long do we have to stay out here? Asked Ivy. I don't know. He said until dinner, but I don't think he meant it. Bean sighed. She knew he meant it. Is your mom home? Not yet, I don't think. Bummer. He'll let us in if it starts raining, won't he? Yeah, but I don't think it's going to rain, said Bean, peering out the bitty window at the sky. Mary Anning used to go out hunting for fossils in storms. She didn't mind, said Ivy. She built her own wooden tower next to the cliff where she saw the skeleton, and she lay down on it and chipped the ichthyosaur out of the cliff, even though the tower was shaking and the rain was pouring down on her. Why didn't she just wait until it stopped raining? Asked Bean. She was afraid that the bones would get washed away in the storm, explained Ivy. Wow. Bean pictured herself lying bravely on top of a shaking wooden tower with rain falling in her eyes. It took her a year to get the whole body out, Ivy added. Chip, 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 a tiny bit at a time. A year? Yelped Bean. Didn't she get bored out of her mind? No, said Ivy. It takes a lot of patience to dig up fossils. She sat up and peered out the other bitty window of the playhouse. Dinosaurs lived all over, you know. I know. There were dinosaurs around here, too. Not ichthyosaurs, but other kinds. Maybe just little ones, said Bean. Maybe just little ones, said Ivy. But still, dinosaurs. I've always liked those little ones with the deadly claws, said Bean. Mary Anning found fossils right on the top of the ground, but sometimes they're buried deep in the dirt. We might have to dig for a long time before we find one. That's okay, we're patient, said Bean. She was beginning to get it. Where do you keep your shovels? Said Ivy. Bean loved to dig. Her shovel flashed and dirt flew through the air. Soon there was a nice wide hole next to the trampoline. Ivy knelt beside it and ran her fingers through the dirt. We have to inspect every bit of it, Ivy said. Even slivers of bone are important to paleontologists. What's that? That's us, said Ivy. The people who dig up dinosaurs are called paleontologists. Cool. Bean felt cheerful. She loved the crunch of her shovel as it went into the earth. She loved hurling the dirt behind her without looking. Whee! Hey, watch out! You got dirt in my hair, cried Ivy. We're paleontologists! We can't be afraid of a little dirt, yelled Bean. The hole was almost 2 feet deep, and the dirt was getting darker and wetter. She flung a big hunk of it over her shoulder. Ouch! Something bounced off of Ivy's head and landed next to her knee. She picked it up, brushing away the mud that was stuck to it. What was it? It was about as long as her hand. It was narrow at one end and flared out at the other. It was grayish-brown. It was a bone. Bean, Ivy gasped. Look it, I got one. Bean's shovel crashed to the ground, and she rushed to Ivy's side. Ivy handed her the gray-brown bone. Bean stared at it and then gave a long whistle. Watch your tail, Mary Anning, she said. Here we come. Ivy Beanosaur. They dug for half an hour without finding any more bones. Bean was on the edge of giving up. She figured that one bone was a lot more than most people found. But then she thought of Mary Anning, chip, chip, chipping for a year. She didn't want to be wimpier than Mary Anning. Or Ivy. So she dug and dug. Ivy's nose was running, and she had mud all over her. Also, her feet had gone to sleep from being kneeled on. But she didn't give up either. She combed through each new load of dirt with her fingers, feeling for bones. She found a lot of rocks. She found a marble. She found a piece of blue plastic. Then her fingers, burrowing into the mud like worms, plucked out another bone. This one was shorter and thicker, but it was definitely a bone. "I got another one," she called. Bean dropped down beside her and looked at the gray-brown lump. "We rock," she said. "No, we fossil," giggled Ivy. She dusted the bone carefully and put it next to the first one. "We can put them together later," she said. "How do you put them together if you don't know which dinosaur it is?" asked Bean. "It's like a puzzle, I think. You look for pieces that fit together," said Ivy. "We can look in dinosaur books, too, so it's a lot easier for us than for Mary Anning. She didn't have any pictures to look at." But, she remembered, Mary Anning found the whole ichthyosaur, so she didn't need to put it together. "It's sort of cheating to find the whole thing," said Bean. "Oh man, here's a big one." She fished around in the dirt and pulled out a thick, heavy bone. It was a very serious-looking bone. Bean held it up. It reached from her hand to her elbow. She whistled. "This is no little cute dinosaur. This is a big, scary dinosaur." "What if that's just its little finger?" said Ivy dreamily. "Monsterosaur," said Bean. "Ivy Beanosaur," said Ivy. "You're supposed to name them after the person who discovered them." Bean giggled. Then her shovel hit something hard. Another bone appeared. This one smooth and rounded. "Whoa, Nellie!" cried Bean. "I think I got a piece of its skull." A few minutes later, Bean found another small bone. Ivy found two more, one big, the other medium. There was no doubt about it. The backyard had been swarming with dinosaurs. "You know," Ivy said, holding up her ninth bone. They didn't even call out when they found them now. "Mary Anning was 12 when she found her ichthyosaur. We're only 7. We're probably the youngest paleontologists in the world." Bean stopped digging and leaned on her shovel. "The youngest paleontologists in the world? Ivy, you know what that means?" "Huh?" "It means we're record breakers." Ivy stopped rubbing dirt. She and Bean grinned at each other. "Youngest paleontologists in the world," said Ivy. "That's way better than spoons." By the time Ivy had to go home, the girls had found 17 bones. They were all different sizes, but they were clearly from the same dinosaur because they were all the same shade of grayish-brown. Bean's father called her in for dinner. Bean washed off most of the dirt and sat down at the dining room table. She smiled, thinking about the dinosaur skeleton she and Ivy were going to build. They were totally awesome. They would probably be on TV. Her parents would have to let her watch TV if she was on it. Bean noticed that Nancy was sneering at her. She was still mad about the octopus. "If I ever catch you looking at one of my glass animals again, you'll be sorry," Nancy hissed, while their father served up their pasta. "What am I supposed to do? Put a blindfold on when you go into your room?" "You're not supposed to go into my room," said Nancy. "Because it's my room. Daddy, can I get a lock on my door?" "No," said Dad, bringing in their bowls. Bean stared at her pasta. It looked funny, but she decided not to say so. "This pasta looks weird," said Nancy. "That's what I thought," But I didn't say it, said a bean. Mom says if you can't say something nice about your food, you shouldn't say anything at all. Nancy lifted one eyebrow and said, Little children who break dishes, steal other people's stuff, and scratch their brains out have no right to talk about what other people do. How about if we don't talk at all for a little while, suggested Dad. Fine with me, said Nancy. Me too, said Bean. So she didn't tell them anything about the amazing dinosaur find in the backyard. Serves them right, she thought. I'll be the youngest paleontologist in the world, and they won't even know it.